I am Maud, 67 years old, and I never thought my own son would abandon me. 3 weeks after my husband Howard died, Thomas drove me to a remote house in rural Vermont. "You will love it here, Mom. A peaceful place to start over," he promised. But his smile never reached his eyes. As he drove away, leaving me with barely enough groceries for a week, I felt something break inside me. I had no car, no phone service, and no neighbors. Just silence and emptiness. Until I found that locked closet upstairs, and what I discovered inside made me scream. If you are watching this video, I would love to know if you have ever felt abandoned by someone you trusted completely. Please, hit subscribe to see how I faced this betrayal and found my strength again. My life with Howard spanned 42 years of genuine partnership and love. We built our little brick home in a cozy Boston neighborhood where I tended my garden of roses and hydrangeas while Howard taught high school mathematics. Our routine was simple but fulfilling. Coffee together every morning on the porch, Sunday dinners with friends, holiday traditions that never changed. Howard would always insist on hanging the same faded ornaments on our Christmas tree, saying, "Why fix what is not broken, Maud?" Thomas was our only child, a quiet, thoughtful boy who grew into a somewhat distant man. We were close when he was young. I still remember how he would run to show me interesting bugs he found in the yard, or how I would help him with his science projects late into the night. That connection began to fade when he met Jennifer in college. Jennifer never warmed to me. At first I thought it was normal mother-in-law tension, but over the years her coldness became unmistakable. She would decline family dinners, making excuses about work. When they did visit, she would check her watch constantly. I tried everything to connect with her. I learned to make her favorite lemon cake. I never commented on their lifestyle choices. I even pretended to enjoy the modern art exhibits she dragged us to. Nothing worked. My only bright spot was my granddaughter, Lily. That sweet 8-year-old girl was the spitting image of Howard, with his kind eyes and curious mind. Despite Jennifer's obvious disapproval, Lily would always run to hug me, whispering her secrets and asking me to tell her stories about when Daddy was little. Those moments kept me going. Howard died on a Tuesday. He was pulling weeds in our garden when his heart simply stopped. Our neighbor found him among the tomato plants, looking peaceful as if he had just decided to take a nap in the sunshine. I was at the grocery store. I never got to say goodbye. The funeral was rushed and impersonal. Thomas insisted on cremation, though Howard had always said he wanted to be buried next to his parents. Jennifer spent most of the service texting on her phone. I was too numb to argue about anything. Looking back, I should have noticed how Thomas kept meeting with the funeral director in private, how he was already talking to realtors while I was still picking out Howard's obituary photo. I never suspected anything until 3 weeks later when Thomas presented his solution to a problem I did not know I had. "Mom, I have been thinking," Thomas said, sitting across from me at our kitchen table. "This house is too big for you now. All these stairs, the yard work Howard used to handle, and the memories must be painful." I looked around the kitchen where Howard and I had prepared thousands of meals together. "I can manage. Mrs. Parker next door checks on me, and I have my friends from church." Thomas shook his head. "We have a family property up in Vermont. Beautiful countryside, fresh air, peace, and quiet. It would be perfect for you to heal." Family property? I never heard about any property in Vermont. I frowned, trying to recall if Howard had ever mentioned such a place. "Dad inherited it years ago. We never used it much, but it is there, already paid for." Thomas smiled, but something in his expression made me uneasy. Jennifer, who rarely spoke directly to me, suddenly became animated. "The natural environment will be so therapeutic, Maud. Studies show nature helps with grief. No city noise, just birds and trees. You always loved gardening." Their sudden concern felt wrong somehow, but I did not want to be difficult. My friends had warned me that grief can make you paranoid, seeing problems where none exist. I would need to think about it. This is my home. All my memories with Howard are here. "That is exactly why you need a change," Thomas insisted. "A fresh start." I called my best friend Barbara that night. We had been friends for 30 years since our children were in kindergarten together. Her husband had passed 2 years earlier, so she understood my grief better than anyone. "He wants to ship you off to the middle of nowhere." Barbara's voice was sharp with suspicion. "Sounds like they want your house, Maud. Do not let them push you around. You can stay with me if you need to." Thomas would not do that. I defended my son, though doubt had already taken root. He is just concerned about me being alone, Barbara snorted. Then why is he not inviting you to live with them or helping you stay in your own home? I had no answer for that. Within days, Thomas had listed our house with a realtor without consulting me. When I confronted him, he claimed it was just to test the market. But potential buyers were already walking through my home, opening closets, judging the kitchen Howard had renovated by hand. I began noticing things disappearing. Howard's collection of vintage watches, my grandmother's silver tea set, the painting we had bought on our 20th anniversary trip to Maine. When I asked Thomas about these items, he would shrug and say, "Just getting a head start on decluttering for you, Mom. Less for you to worry about." One evening, I found him removing Howard's leather recliner, the one where my husband had read the newspaper every Sunday for decades. "I want to keep that," I said firmly. "It will not fit in the Vermont house, Mom. The rooms are smaller there." He did not even pause as he and his friend loaded it into a truck. I tried to maintain my relationship with Lily, despite everything. I would call her on the house phone when I knew Jennifer would be at her yoga class. Lily would tell me about school, her friends, her pet hamster named Sparkles. But these calls became less frequent as Jennifer began restricting when Lily could talk to me. By the time moving day arrived 6 weeks after Howard's death, I had lost all say in my own life. I was packed into Thomas's SUV with 2 suitcases and a box of photo albums I had managed to hide from his decluttering. Everything else, including the home Howard and I had built together, was already gone. The drive took 6 hours each mile, taking me farther from everything familiar. We left the highway after the first 3 hours, then drove on increasingly narrow and winding roads. The towns became smaller, the houses more spread out until there were just forests and occasional farms. The cell phone signal on my phone disappeared about an hour before we arrived. "This is a family property?" I asked as we turned onto a dirt road. "Howard never mentioned owning land up here. It has been in the family for generations," Thomas said vaguely. Dad did not talk about it much. After bouncing down the dirt road for 20 minutes, we pulled up to a weathered 2-story farmhouse. The white paint was peeling, the porch sagged in one corner, and the yard was overgrown with weeds. It looked nothing like the peaceful country retreat Thomas had described. "It needs a little work," Thomas admitted, noticing my expression. "But the structure is sound and the views are spectacular." He gestured toward the mountains visible in the distance. Inside was worse. Musty air filled my lungs as Thomas pushed open the front door. Dated furniture from the 70s filled the living room. The kitchen had ancient appliances, including a refrigerator that hummed alarmingly. Upstairs, the bedroom Thomas showed me had a sagging mattress and faded curtains. "Where's the nearest town?" I asked, trying to keep the panic from my voice. "About 5 miles down the road. Small place called Miller's Creek. They have a general store and a post office." Thomas set my suitcases on the bedroom floor. "And how would I get there? Is there a bus?" Thomas avoided my eyes. "No public transportation out here, Mom, but it is a nice walk on a good day." "A 5-mile walk at my age." My voice rose despite my efforts to stay calm. "I will come visit on weekends. Bring you supplies." Thomas checked his watch. "I should get going before it gets dark. The road is tricky at night." He hurried me through a quick tour of the house, pointing out the pantry stocked with a few canned goods, the location of the fuse box, and how to work the temperamental hot water heater. Then he handed me a set of keys and headed for the door, all within 30 minutes of our arrival. "You are leaving already. You just drove me 6 hours to a place I have never been, and you are leaving—" I followed him onto the porch, disbelief making my voice shake. "I have an early meeting tomorrow. I will be back next weekend with more supplies and to check on you." He gave me a quick, awkward hug. "Try to relax, Mom. This is what Dad would have wanted." I watched his SUV disappear down the dirt road, dust billowing behind him. Only then did I try my cell phone again. No service, as I expected. I went back inside to try the landline on the kitchen wall. When I picked up the receiver, there was no dial tone. That first night, I sat on the lumpy sofa as darkness fell, listening to the unfamiliar sounds of the countryside. No streetlights illuminated the windows, no traffic noises or neighbor voices penetrated the walls. Just the wind in the trees and occasional animal sounds that made me jump. I explored the house more thoroughly the next morning. The roof leaked in 2 places. The hot water only lasted for 3 minutes. The nearest neighbor, according to a faded local map I found in a drawer, was over 2 miles away. I was completely isolated without transportation or communication in a house that Howard had definitely never owned or even visited. That was when I knew with absolute certainty that my son had abandoned me. Thomas did not come the following weekend, or the weekend after that. The meager supplies he had left dwindled quickly. I rationed the canned beans and soup, eating just enough to keep my strength up. The bread grew mold within days. The milk spoiled. I found some wild berries growing near the house and collected rainwater in buckets when the tap water began to smell strange. The isolation was worse than the hunger. No human voices, no passing cars, not even a mailman. I began talking to myself just to hear a human voice. I sang Howard's favorite songs while I explored the property, finding an overgrown vegetable garden that might have been productive years ago. One rainy afternoon during my second week alone, I decided to thoroughly search the house for anything useful. In the master bedroom, which I had avoided using because it felt too musty, I discovered a closet with a padlock on it. The lock was old and rusted, but still functional. Why would a closet in an abandoned house be locked? I spent 3 days trying to open it. I tried hairpins, a letter opener, even a rusty screwdriver I found in a kitchen drawer. On the 3rd day, frustrated and increasingly desperate, I took a fireplace poker and simply broke the hasp off the door. It gave way with a splintering crack that echoed through the empty house. What I found inside made me scream. The closet contained a metal file box and several manila envelopes stuffed with papers. The first document I pulled out was a deed to the house. It was not a family property at all. It had been purchased 3 months earlier from a bank that had foreclosed on the previous owners. The buyer was listed as Thomas Warren, my son. My hands shaking, I continued looking through the papers. There was correspondence between Thomas and a real estate investment company discussing the purchase of a low-cost rural property suitable for senior placement. They had specifically looked for something isolated but technically habitable. Then I found a copy of what appeared to be Howard's will, but it was different from the one we had created together years ago. This version left everything to Thomas, with only a small monthly stipend for me, contingent upon residence in the approved senior living arrangement. My signature was at the bottom, but I had never seen this document before, let alone signed it. There were photos of Thomas and Jennifer meeting with a man I did not recognize, but who was identified in an accompanying email as Gerald Marcus, attorney at law, specializing in estate modifications and asset preservation for families with elderly dependents. The final envelope contained receipts and sales records. My antique pearl necklace sold to a collector in New York. Howard's rare book collection auctioned off piece by piece. Our furniture, our art even. Howard's cherished vinyl record collection, all liquidated and converted to cash that had apparently gone straight into Thomas and Jennifer's pockets. I sat on the dusty bedroom floor, the evidence of my son's betrayal spread around me like a grotesque puzzle finally assembled. They had not just abandoned me, they had systematically robbed me of everything Howard and I had built together over 4 decades. The shock gave way to a white-hot rage I had never experienced before. In that moment, I realized I had 2 choices: give up and wither away in this isolated prison, or fight back with everything I had left. I chose to fight. The next morning, I explored the dilapidated shed behind the house and discovered an old bicycle with flat tires but an otherwise intact frame. Howard had taught me basic repair skills during our early marriage when we could not afford to hire professionals. I found a hand pump and spent a full day getting those tires inflated enough to hold air. It had been nearly 40 years since I had ridden a bicycle, and at 67 with arthritic knees and questionable balance, it seemed like a foolish plan. But the alternative was starving alone in this house. I practiced riding in circles around the yard, falling several times before regaining my childhood muscle memory. The journey to town was 5 miles of hilly, unpaved road. I packed a small bag with the damning documents, filled a water bottle, and set off at dawn when the summer heat would be most forgiving. The ride was grueling. My legs burned with each pedal stroke up the hills. Twice I had to stop and rest in the shade of roadside trees. A pickup truck passed me, the driver giving me a curious look but not stopping. By mid-morning, I reached Miller's Creek, a tiny settlement consisting of a general store, a gas station, and a handful of houses clustered around a crossroads. I coasted to a stop outside the store, my legs trembling so badly I nearly collapsed when I dismounted the bike. The store owner, a bearded man in his 60s, looked up from his newspaper as I stumbled in. "You all right, ma'am? Water, please," I gasped, making my way to a stool at the small counter. He quickly brought me a glass of cold water and watched with concern as I drank it. "You came from up Birch Hill, way on that old bike in this heat." I nodded, trying to catch my breath. "My name is Maud Warren. I am staying at the old farmhouse up there. Do you have a telephone I could use? Frank Hoskins?" He introduced himself, extending a weathered hand. "And yes, got a phone in the back office. Long distance. Boston," I admitted. "But I can pay you." I realized I had no money. Thomas had made sure of that. Frank waved away my concern. "First call is on the house for new neighbors. Come on back." I called Barbara, my fingers shaking as I dialed the number I knew by heart. When she answered, I broke down in tears, the story pouring out of me in a jumbled mess. That no good son of a... Barbara rarely cursed, but she made an exception now. "Maud, I am coming to get you. It will take me a day to arrange things and make the drive, but I am coming. Can you get back to that house safely?" Frank, who had politely stepped away but was clearly listening, spoke up. "I can drive her back, ma'am, and check on her tomorrow, too." Barbara and Frank exchanged information while I sat drinking a second glass of water, overwhelmed by this simple act of human kindness from a stranger, when my own son had shown such cruelty. Before taking me back to the house, Frank insisted on loading my bicycle with supplies. "On credit," he said firmly when I protested. "You can settle up once your friend gets here." I returned to the farmhouse with fresh bread, cheese, canned goods, and most importantly, hope. While waiting for Barbara, I continued searching the house and found more evidence of Thomas's scheme, including bank statements showing large withdrawals from Howard's accounts just days after his death. 2 days later, I heard a car coming up the dirt road. Expecting Barbara, I was shocked to see Thomas's SUV instead. He looked angry as he stormed up to the porch where I sat waiting. "What did you do?" he demanded without preamble. "Some man called our house asking for delivery instructions for your medications. Jennifer had to make up some story about you visiting relatives." "Hello to you too, Thomas," I said calmly, though my heart was racing. "It has been 2 weeks since you dropped me here with barely enough food for a few days." "I was busy dealing with Dad's estate," he snapped, then seemed to notice the papers in my lap. His face paled. "What are those? Your plans laid out in black and white. The foreclosure purchase, the fake will, the sales receipts for my belongings." I looked him straight in the eyes. "You never intended to come back regularly, did you? You were hoping I would just disappear up here?" Thomas's expression shifted from shock to defensive anger. "You have no idea the pressure we have been under. Jennifer's business is struggling. Lily's private school tuition keeps increasing. Dad's life insurance barely covered his medical bills. So you decided to solve your problems by abandoning your mother in a falling-down house in the middle of nowhere. After stealing everything Howard and I worked our entire lives for. Jennifer thought," he began. "Do not blame your wife for this, Thomas. You made these choices." His face hardened. "Who would believe you anyway? An elderly, grieving widow, probably confused, making accusations against her devoted son who was just trying to provide a peaceful retirement. I have power of attorney now, Mom. I have the legal will. Your signature is on everything." "Forged signatures," I corrected him, "and I have sent copies of everything I found to Barbara and to Frank in town. People know where I am now and what you have done." As if summoned by his name, Frank's truck appeared on the dirt road, followed by Barbara's sedan. Thomas's face drained of color. "You should leave now," I told my son quietly, "unless you want to explain to my friends why you abandoned your mother without food transportation or communication." "Mom, please." His tone changed, suddenly pleading. "I can explain everything. We can work this out as a family." "We stopped being a family the moment you decided I was disposable." I stood up from my chair, surprised by the steadiness in my voice. "Now get off my porch." Frank approached his tall frame, imposing as he assessed the situation. "Everything all right here, Mrs. Warren?" Thomas backed away. "This is not over," he said, but the threat sounded hollow. He got in his SUV and sped away, gravel spraying behind him. Barbara ran up and embraced me, tears in her eyes. Oh, Maud, what did he do to you? You look like you have lost 15 pounds. I hugged my friend back, feeling truly safe for the first time since Howard died. He underestimated me. That was his biggest mistake. Over the next few months, my life transformed in ways I never could have imagined. Barbara took me back to Boston, welcoming me into her guest room while we sorted out the legal mess Thomas had created. The lawyer Barbara introduced me to a fierce woman named Diana Rodriguez, was outraged by what Thomas had done. Elder, abandonment, financial exploitation, forgery, fraud, she listed off, shaking her head as she reviewed my documents. Your son has committed several serious crimes, Mrs. Warren. We discovered that Howard's real will was still on file with our original attorney. Thomas had created a fraudulent copy but had not managed to replace the official document. The house sale was more complicated as the buyers were innocent parties, but Diana filed lawsuits to recover the value of all the stolen belongings and the proceeds from the house. Facing criminal charges and public exposure, Thomas agreed to a settlement. I received financial compensation for most of what was stolen, though many irreplaceable family mementos were gone forever. Jennifer refused to speak to me during the entire process, sending cold emails through their attorney instead. The most painful part was the impact on my relationship with Lily. Thomas and Jennifer initially prevented any contact between us, telling her I was too sick for visitors. But my persistent granddaughter eventually found ways to reach out. She sent me secret letters through her school friends and once even called me from a classmate's house. I miss you, Grandma, she whispered into the phone. Mom and Dad said you moved away because you did not want to see us anymore. But that is not true, is it? Never true, sweetheart, I assured her. I will always want to see you. 6 months after the Vermont incident, I bought a small condo near Barbara's home. I decided against fighting for Howard's and my old house. Too many painful memories lived there now. Instead, I created a new space filled with plants and colorful artwork. Barbara helped me find secondhand furniture with character and warmth. It became a place of healing. I joined a support group for seniors who had experienced family estrangement and financial abuse. Sharing my story helped others recognize warning signs in their own families. One woman, after hearing about Thomas's gradual isolation tactics, realized her daughter was doing something similar and took steps to protect herself. I started teaching gardening classes at the local community center, sharing the knowledge Howard and I had developed over decades tending our garden. Working with plants again connected me to happier memories and brought new friends into my life. The dirt under my fingernails felt like coming home. Eventually, Thomas reached out with a carefully worded apology that felt more like damage control than genuine remorse. I did not reject him outright, but I established firm boundaries. Our relationship would never be the same, but I would not carry the burden of hatred. That would only hurt me more. Lily became my regular visitor, riding her bike to my condo after school when Jennifer was busy with her business meetings. We baked cookies together and planted a small container garden on my balcony. She never asked directly about what happened between me and her parents, but she once said, "Sometimes grown-ups do mean things when they are scared about money, right, Grandma?" Such wisdom from a 9-year-old broke my heart. The most profound lesson from this ordeal was recognizing my own resilience. I had always defined myself as Howard's wife, Thomas's mother, Lily's grandmother. When Howard died and Thomas betrayed me, I thought I had lost everything that mattered. But alone in that Vermont house facing starvation and abandonment, I discovered a strength I never knew I possessed. I realized that starting over at 67 was not a tragedy, but an unexpected gift. I found new purpose in helping others avoid similar betrayals. I found joy in simple pleasures that could not be taken away. Most importantly, I found that the capacity for love remains even after profound betrayal. My love for Lily never diminished, and in time, I even found space for a complex, cautious love for Thomas, though I would never trust him fully again. What happened to me is unfortunately common. Too many elderly parents are isolated, manipulated, and abandoned by the very children they raised with love. If my story helps even one person recognize the warning signs or gives courage to someone fighting to reclaim their life, then some good has come from my pain. Have you ever had to start your life over when you thought your story was already written? Or have you witnessed an older relative experiencing manipulation from family members? Please share your experiences in the comments below. Remember to like and subscribe if this story resonated with you, and share it with someone who might need to hear that it is never too late to stand up for yourself and begin again. Thank you for listening to my journey from betrayal to strength. I hope it reminds you that we are all stronger than we know,